Okay, so this is my final project on the Apache Indian tribe by me, Piper Donovan, for our Native American anthropology class. Start by saying that within the Apache, there are many different bands, and you can hear them being called as such. The Western Apache, Navajo, Kiowa Apache, Chiricahua Apache, Lipan, and Mescalero. Most of these are still referred to as Apache, which means enemy, and was probably given to this tribe by many other tribes that they invaded. There is an author of a book that I read, Origins of the Apache Indians, and he described them as revengeful people, and at one point this was a necessity for survival. However, times are changing from conquering your vengeance during a war, and now killings are sporadic and whenever they feel without regards to consequence. And when I say now, I'm talking 100 years ago, still within the early 20th century. Even the punishments behind adultery and sex before marriage have become laxed. Women would lose their noses for adultery, and men were punished by death. The author explains that now there are only a few noseless old women, and these actions are not as frequent. I think that this was because the white man ways influenced the Indians more than anyone could have thought. The Apache were once abundant in numbers, allowing them to flourish in all areas of harvesting, hunting, and gathering, no matter their location in the United States, and had an amazing culture and unique in politics, economics, and religion, as well as their marriage and religious beliefs that expanded their kinship even with other tribes. But their relationship with the United States is one that has always wavered in the past and has led to new contemporary issues with their health, economy, environment, and sovereign rights, all of which are similar and different to their Native American tribes. So, all of these things that I listed in my thesis statement, health, economy, environment, and sovereign rights, which are part of their modern issues, are going to be talked about, as well as the relationship with the US, and as well as their old beliefs, religious beliefs, and how they came to be. So, starting with their migration theory, the Apache Indians are known for being a nomadic tribe, having traveled around throughout history and never settling in one place for too long. It is believed they began in what is now Alaska and even more west into modern day Russia. There is also evidence of them having been in the northwest portion of the United States, such as Washington and Oregon, and within the most recent thousands of years, and then eventually migrating to the southwest areas around Arizona and New Mexico. They survived on buffalo meat and used their hide. They survived on buffalo meat and used their hide to keep warm in the winter months, also using the bones and other body parts for weapons as defense against other tribes. As the Apache migrated even into Texas, Oklahoma, and Mexico, they continued to find troubles and battled with Spaniards for lands. These battles could be long and bloody, and many times ended in death. But there was once a ceremony in which an Apache chief buried a hatchet in order to symbolize the end of the war and peace with the Spaniards. And this is where we get the term bury the hatchet to this day. Material culture, and this goes hand in hand with what I talked about before, with eating buffalo meat. They never wasted anything. At least that's always something that I learned. They never wasted a part of an animal that they ate, and usually use those parts to also make materials for them. They made such items as robes, belts, teepee covers, and shoes amongst other things. They were made solely from buffalo pelts, also clay pots. Many of their knives and weaponry, such as bows, were made from the bone of animals they ate. This means most of their material culture was created from things that they made, which was created from animals they ate. They also have crafted baskets as well as beads and jewelry they make to this day. For good luck, they sewed beads on their leather war shirts. They also made arrow quills, beaded bags, beaded bags, saddle blankets, and others. The men of the Apache tribe wore a cotton tunic shirt and pants of the Mexicans, and the Apache women wore calico dresses, just like the clothing of Mexican women. Both men and women wore hide moccasins with beaded decoration. By the 1800s, Apache clothing was beginning to become influenced by the U.S. Army Code of Dress. Apaches who used to live on the plains adopted the dress of the Kiowa and Sayos neighbors. Apaches had long hair, wore feather headdresses, and painted their faces in certain designs depending on whether the occasion was festive, religious, or ceremonial before warriors went out to face their enemy. Historical subsistence system. The Apache were hunters and gatherers. They ate plenty of buffalo, deer, antelope, and corn. The men hunted while the women gathered nuts, seeds, and fruits. The Apache were not typically known as farmers and only had corn when they traded with other tribes or when they raided and stole from those other tribes. They were known for only eating herbivores or other animals that only ate plants, fruits, and seeds too. Only in case of emergencies would they eat bugs, field mice, or fish. There's also known utensils for the Apache, what they would have used to use. So on this slide, you can see I kind of made a column for the good foods that they would eat and the bad foods that were kind of no-nos and, in quotes, gross foods for them. They kind of thought that they were at the bottom of the totem pole and weren't worth their time to hunt and gather it for food. They would only eat those things if it was a dire emergency and they had no other case to eat. The Apache and U.S. government relationships. But the relationship between the tribes and the U.S. government has always been a rocky one, considering the Indians were gradually moved from their homes to live on the reservations and stripped much of their land they had before. There's always been trust issues between these two. To try and help the reservations run smoothly, there was a section of the government created called the BIA, or the Bureau of Indian Affairs. The Bureau of Indian Affairs was hired as a sort of middleman to release funds to the Indians on their reservation. It became the task of the Interior Department's Bureau of Indian Affairs to lease the land and distribute any wealth it earned from grazing, farming, oil drilling, or mining, says Steele. This was an important tool to have to make sure, or what the government thought would happen. The money and lands were distributed evenly and accurately. However, they're still not fully completing their promises they had made to the Indians. Many and most have ill feelings towards the BIA, as they have not had good relationships with them in the past because of this mismanagement of their funds. Mary Fish, a Muskogee Indian from Oklahoma, tells of receiving checks ranging from as little as 6 cents to as much as $3,000 from her 1/8 interest in a property that includes oil wells. The existence of the BIA takes Indians back several paces, as it only suppresses them under the white man. Everything within their life of means and money is approved or declined by the government, and it goes through the BIA. Religious beliefs. Most everyone has a religion and their ideas of how the earth was created, whether it be a miracle of God or science and evolution. The Apache did not know of such things as science, but they had what they believed to be answers about what's all around them, including life and death. They believed everything to have life, including the earth and sky. They even assigned each a sex, such as the earth being female and the sky being male. The sun is also male, and he is married to his female counterpart, the moon. From new moon to new moon, she is said to age from infancy to old womanhood and back, says Goodwin. According to the Apache religion, everything has life, even the water, as it can ripple and flow, rain, clouds, and lightning. Rain comes from the water people, cloud people, and the lightning people in the form of male or female rain. The Apache religion is to the earth and sky and believes that these two things are people. The earth is female, while her bones are the mountains and her hair is the trees and plants. The sky is also human and has life, but is male. All areas of the world, including the sun, moon, lightning, and even the underground, have roles to play within their religious beliefs. Lightning people are also in human form of men, women, girls, and boys, and rainbows also belong to them. Just because the lightning people, cloud people also form sexes, and the four main rivers on the earth each have a sex, while one is chief. Through ceremonial rituals, holy charms, religious songs, and prayers, and even in dreams, the four directions are all a part of this, with animals, plants, mountains, and others associated with each direction. This is the beginning of a long spiritual and magical belief system among the Apache people. There is also decided to add this in. There was a ceremonial a ceremony called the first moccasin ceremony, which I thought was really cool, that they created after a child was born, in honor of their very first steps. The Apache hold this ceremony in order to celebrate a child's first steps. This ceremony is held at new moon. The child wears a newly made outfit and their first moccasins. This ceremony involves a feast, gift-giving, songs, prayers, and dancing, and blessings with pollen. The purpose of this ceremony is to keep the child healthy and strong. There are also, of course, marriage and kinship ceremonies. The Apache are very similar to many European countries within their rituals and marriage bindings, such as the important and royal people of Europe today. They used marriage to forge alliances. Accordingly, their bands grew in population while others declined. Although the Apache were known for raiding other camps and villages, they also knew in order to survive, they must create and maintain relationships with many kinds of people. Allowing marriage outside of your own band was not ever done before until in 1789, the chief of the Lipans married the sister of the Mescalero chief. This changed their social structure and culture of many of the Apache bands, but it allowed survival and assistance whenever necessary. Ella, you're interrupting my thing. Political structure. The Apaches had no prisons as white men have. Instead of sending their criminals into prison, they sent them out of their tribe. These faithless, cruel, lazy, or cowardly members of the tribe were excluded in such a manner that they could not join any other tribe. Neither could they have any protection from our unwritten tribal laws. This was the greatest form of punishment for a man or a woman, a loner with no tribe who would have to survive on their own. This was basically, in some ways, a death sentence, and most wouldn't survive. This type of punishment shows how the Apache laws worked and what they could lead to. Some contemporary issues that the Apache are now struggling with, one main point being health. In 2016, the CDC described among all Americans, the natives on their land had higher rates of disease and early death than any other racial and ethnic groups in the United States. Have a higher prevalence of obesity than their white counterparts, 34% versus 23% for men and 36% versus 21% for women. They are twice as likely to have diagnosed diabetes and are more likely to be current smokers. These are all according to the CDC in 2016. There are many programs underway to help change the health and habits of those living on reservations because they're unaware of the risks they take every day. By stopping smoke habits, eating healthier choices, and implementing active youth programs, things will hopefully change for the better on these reservations. Most believe it was the lack of attention reservations get that allowed them to get on these terrible habits, which brought mortality rates as well as obesity rates through the roof. By implementing these new health interventions and strategies, not only with their daily life change, but their healthcare system too. The hope of this is by increasing more clinics, pharmacists, nurses, and doctors on reservations. The next modern issue is education, which I kind of described goes hand in hand um, with health. Poor health has also been linked to poor education within the native tribes. While 83.2% of Americans completed high school in the years 2014 to 2015 school year, just 71.6% of American Indians and Alaskan Natives did. And that is according to the U.S. National Center for Education Statistics. It's kind of a big, never ending circle. Those who can afford a higher education lack the knowledge and informed education of eating healthy and quality care. There's a need for more American Indian physicians at this time, people who have the education and schooling, but also know the lifestyle and values of the people on the reservation, which is very important. This is important for the Apache community to have for their leaders who can help them with better health and education. Another contemporary issue being the economy. In the past, the Apache is just one among many tribes to be hit by economic issues, such as high suicide rates, which some believe to be associated with the U.S. unemployment rate at the same time. When comparing the unemployment rates for the U.S. and New Mexico between 1960 and 1986, the results were similar to the American Indian suicide rate over 3 tribes, including the Apache. Thus, the average suicide rate for these 3 American Indian tribes in New Mexico and the New Mexico suicide rate were passively correlated with the unemployment rates for the United States and New Mexico, suggesting that American Indian suicide rates may respond to the same social conditions as the overall suicide rate. The economy for most Apache is poor. In order for them to go to college or have a career, most must leave the reservation. However, most reservations have deals with the government that allows the creation and operation of enterprises on reservation soil, such as casinos, ski resorts, and museum gift shops. The tribe also owns and operates the Sunrise Park ski area and summer resort 3 miles south of McNairy, Arizona. It is open year-round and contributes both jobs and tourist dollars to the local economy, says Birchfield. Next is the environment, which is also a contemporary issue for the Apache reservations. The Mescalero Apache tribe has been threatened by global warming in the most recent years. The shift in weather has affected their economy and negatively impacted their ski resort. And that's just the start of it. Weather changes are said to be associated with many other devastating events. These events including catastrophic wildfires, unpredicted flood events, crop-killing cold snaps, devastating winds, and extreme diurnal temperature shifts that range from the minimum to the maximum temperature every 24 hours. Also, sovereign rights for the Native American Indians, specifically the Apache. The Indians, especially the Apache, themselves consider their sovereign rights important. They have rights that belong to them until the day they decide to give them away. However, there have been many cases based on the sovereignty of Native American Indians that are brought to the Supreme Court, most of which never get the light of day they are due. Since the 1970s, Indian interests have lost more than 89% of the cases decided by the court, a worse success rate than convicted criminals have barred in the merits of their cases. So to recap, I'm going to go back. To recap, over all the subjects talked about above, between health, economy, environment, education, and sovereign rights, there are so many things now in effect to push and make the Apache tribe better. Today, the tribe has taken on an important environmental role to improve their economy, health, and schools on their reservation. There are educational opportunities put into place to help teach kids how to garden and grow their own fruits and vegetables, just as their ancestors did, and in turn allows for much healthier habits. Comparing and contrasting Native American tribes to my specific Apache tribe, many Native American tribes went through the same situations as the Apache, included in their culture, religion, migration theory, and their settlements at this time. However, there are differences in their beliefs. Although the majority prays to the earth, wind, and fire, they all have different origin beliefs, which impacts their reservation tribes to this day. So they're unique. Their land amounts and reservations all vary depending on where they're settled, which also impacts their farming, hunting, and creation of jobs today. Some bigger reservations have built casinos, while smaller ones have just make and sell jewelry, and this is all dependent on the tribe. As described by the Apache themselves, they have always been able to flourish, adapt, and thrive no matter their conditions. They also believe that their tribal traditions and identities have never been as strong as they are today. The Apache have survived because of they were able they're able to easily adapt to the environment based on how other populations have around them. The Apaches survived and prospered outside the Spanish colonial system primarily because they adapted to the changing ecosystems of the Southwest. They altered their economy by creating new methods of production and expanding or contracting socio-political structures to meet economic demand. And my resources for my pictures and information. There's quite a bit. Thank you.